They always tell you, 8 hours of sleep? Something. Then I hear 6 for adults. I don't know. What is what? That's why we ask healthy living expert Judy Gaman to join us today and sort this all out. Judy, welcome to your morning wake-ups. Good to have you on.
Oh, it's always good to be on with you, Mike.
Now, I don't know what her lifestyle is. I don't know how much screen time she's doing. I don't know anything about her other than she's my friend's daughter. But we hear that all the time. I'm tired, even adults. So how much for, say, a high school student?
Oh, they need 8 to 10, and most of our kids they're getting about 6. And this is a problem because they get overstimulated with all kinds of electronics and, their phone's constantly dinging, or they're overscheduled with sports and other extracurricular activities. And really that 8 to 10 hours is critical because the brain is still developing. And we forget that these teenagers and young adults still have developing brains, and that requires more sleep.
Okay, clutter doesn't sound good. So one of the things that I've noticed, like I don't have any trouble falling asleep. Where I have trouble is staying asleep because everything wakes me up and I can't be alone in that. So how do we set the scene to make sure that we are staying asleep?
We have a podcast called the Stay Young America podcast, and we had a very amazing sleep expert on who once told us this advice, which seems so simplistic, but it works really well. And that is, have a half of a banana and a tablespoon of peanut butter. If you are in that category, like you, LaDonna, where you can't stay asleep, there's something about the chemical combination that puts you to sleep and keeps you asleep. There's probably protein in the peanut butter, but, there are electrolytes in bananas. You don't want to eat the whole banana, too much sugar. But that combination really works. We've tried it with our patients at Executive Medicine of Texas, and we just always get good feedback.
I've heard a stat that said that drowsy driving or not having enough rest can be just as dangerous as drunk driving. What's the effect of not getting enough sleep over a period of time? What does it do to us?
Well, first of all, it can affect our cognition. Some people think, gosh, am I getting Alzheimer's? I'm getting so forgetful, or I'm having trouble concentrating at work. The very first thing that they should ask themselves is, am I getting enough sleep? Think of the brain like a computer. If you have your computer on and you have all your windows open and you just let it run and you never restart it and you just keep opening more windows, eventually it's going to run slowly or just shut down altogether. And that's really what happens to our brains and to our bodies. We've got to have that sleep. We now know through functional MRI that when we sleep and we get into that really deep REM sleep, our brain washes itself like a washing machine, clears out those plaques. But if we're not getting that deep sleep, there's just a continuous buildup.
So what should we be doing for them, and how much should they get?
Well, first we should understand that our teenagers and young adults need more sleep. They need about 8 to 10 hours a night or in the 24-hour period. So maybe you say, gosh, my kid is so lazy. They're going to bed late and then they're getting up really late. Well, that's partially because their circadian rhythm has shifted, and that's a natural state. So there's a disconnect sometimes between parents and these teenagers because we want them to get up, when we get up and be moving, and we want them to go to bed earlier, but sometimes that's just not possible for them. So you mentioned being in college and having to get up early for an exam. Sometimes that's really hard because their circadian rhythm is off. So an 8 a.m. exam, which means they got to get up at 6 or 7, is really hard, and it may be harder for them to get to bed earlier at night.
However, sometimes when I just get sick-ish or so, the next day I can feel a little bit even better if I just don't sleep all that time. But, I figured for me, 70 years old, 7 to 8 hours is pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And it is interesting you said sometimes you can get 6 hours of sleep. I love this saying, and usually we think about this when we think about college days, but it's not the night before, it's the night before the night before. So you could sleep 6 hours and you could be great. And the next night you go to bed, you wake up, you're like, why am I so tired today?
Right.
So it's always the night before the night before.